I have the situation that a company happened to have a control like that in France. There were two drivers in a team, and the police said, where did you ask, where did you have the 45 hours break? And they said, at a friend. And the police in France asked the company to prove, to give the address of the friend.
No, they cannot.
And afterwards said that there is a law since 73, something like that, that if you accommodate two persons, then is a, let's say it's a sort of a collective accommodation, and then you are passable to pay 4,000 euro and 2-year imprisonment because you had two friends in your house to sleep in France. Have you heard about it?
This is complete bullshit. This is a, but we heard these kind of stories every time from, there are certain police officers who take things a little bit too far, and who, I didn't hear this story, but I have similar ones where the police say, no, you have the obligation to show and you have to prove, and come on, if you don't prove, we are going to put you in jail and things like this. This is not true. They don't have the right to ask. And I'm actually quite happy that if you look at the Q&A from the European Commission, then they will put clearly that the driver doesn't have to have any documentation. So what I would do as a transport company is to make a printout in several languages where I'm driving of this Q&A, put it in the truck, and if ever a police officer tries and asks you, just show him the document. You say, look, this is official from European Commission. You cannot ask, I'm not going to tell, and please do some other kind of control, but because you cannot find me on this.
Okay, now I have another topic which I didn't ask you about it, but it goes after your answer before. Maybe you know that in Romania, the fiscal authorities started a sort of let's say a war with the transport companies that work in the European Union, and they asked to pay taxes and contributions on the sums that are paid as daily allowances. And they said that this, because of the posting drivers directive, they had to pay actually the minimum wage in the country they were detached. And this is the main reason. And afterwards, they said in the papers that actually the driver didn't work in Romania at all. He worked only in Belgium or in UK or in France.
Yeah, but the problem is, if you look at it from a legal point of view, this is not a correct argument. I'm not a specialist in Romanian labor law, but I am a specialist in international detachment. So this argument could be made in 50 months. Then they would have, it would be correct. Because in 50 months, the rule will be that you have to pay the minimum wage of the country where you drive, with the exemption of bilateral transport and transit transport, as you know. However, today, it's not like this. This detachment system doesn't work. The only exception is if you do cabotage. So today, if a driver from a Romanian company is doing cabotage, then for example, in Belgium, then he has to be paid also today Belgian minimum wage. If he does the same in France, he has to be paid French minimum wage. But for the Romanian authorities to use this as a global argument and to state, look, we will not accept this, I don't think, if you look at it from a detachment point of view, I don't think it's correct. I don't know about the argumentation on national Romanian law, that I cannot intervene, it's not my specialty, but from a European perspective, I don't think this argument is correct.
I wanted to ask you something else. So if the Romanian fiscal authority says that these drivers didn't work in Romania at all, then Belgium or UK can ask from Romania to pay back all the social contributions for these drivers?
No, this is, you have to look at 2 points. If you look at social contribution, the rule is clear. You have to pay your social contributions firstly in the country of your residence if you do at least 25% of your work in that country. Now, if the driver doesn't do 25% of his working time in Romania, then you come to the secondary rule, which states that you should pay your social contributions in the country of your employer. So if your employer is a Romanian company, then once again, it's Romanian social contributions which has to be paid, which means that there's no possibility, if it's a real company and not a postal box type of company, if it's a real company, that Belgium or France cannot come and ask social contributions towards this driver. That's the first part. Then in the fiscal part of things, you have to look at, there are bilateral treaties on non-double taxation. Most of these treaties include the law that you have to look for everything concerning transport and also the wages of the drivers, to look where the wages have to be taxed. You once again have to look at the seat of the company of the employer. So if it's a real company in Romania, which is being directed in Romania, and it's a real, not a postal box, then there's no argumentation to be made that there is a risk that Belgium or other authorities are going to claim a part of this taxation from Romania. It's not possible. So this is, according to me, this is false argumentation. Once again, it could be that there is national Romanian argumentation concerning taxation of diurnas, but if you look at it from a European perspective, I don't think there's an argument to be made there now. There's going to be an argument in 1.5 years when the mobility package and the new rules on delegation will come into play. Then, of course, that's something completely else, but until today, no.
But on the other hand, we saw so many cases of social dumping in Belgium, which has been won by the Belgian authorities. So they
actually, that's not true. As far as I'm aware, there are not even 5 final judgments in Belgium. Now, you have to know that a lot of these cases are not about the social contribution and the taxes. Most of these cases are about the wages of the drivers, where where Belgian or French authorities are stating, look, these drivers are working not from Romania. Their real boss is not in Romania, but their real boss is in Belgium. So their real employer is a Belgian company, which means that you have to pay Belgian wages. So it's a little bit easy to say this, but that's not the legal reality. The legal reality is that if you have a real company in Romania, but once again, not the postal box office, then on social contributions and on taxes, you shouldn't have any problems. If, however, you are a postal box, then you will have very big problems. And most of the big cases which are going on, the main topic there is to see if the Romanian, Slovakian, Lithuanian, Polish, whatever company is a postal box office or not. But if it's a real company, normally, if you look at the rules in Social Security Regulation 883 of 2004, and in fiscality, the double tax treaties, normally there shouldn't be an issue there.
What is a real postal box company?
Well, that's actually the big topic today. Most of the cases we are seeing, they are referring to a couple of judgments from a European court, mostly the Flanders case, it's called. And in the Flanders case, European court dictated about 8 arguments to ascertain whether a company has its real seat in the country where it's registered. First argument is the country of registration. That's an easy one. Then is the country where the bookkeeping is being done, the country where the documentation is being held, the country where the operational center is. Then you have to look at the rules concerning the license of the company, because once again, also there the mobility package will intervene. So these are, you have to take into account. You have to take into account the country where the most of the contracts of the company are being signed. So for example, if you have a company in Romania, but in reality they are signing their insurance papers in Belgium, they are signing the buys of their truck in Belgium, they are buying most of their gas oil in Belgium, etc., etc., that's an indication that it's a postal box office. So you have to look at all these different arguments to ascertain whether it's a postal box or not. It's a very difficult discussion, which is exactly why a lot of these cases in Belgian court are taking so long. I'm going to court tomorrow in one case, which will be, I think, one of the first big judgments, if we will get it. I hope to get it by the end of the year. I have one Friday in court and I have one Monday in court. But there are quite a lot. And we will have to see in which way the courts are going to establish this in Belgium, but they are quite strict. That's true.
Actually, if I think about a lot of Romanian companies that work in inside EU, most of them have insurance companies from abroad, leasing companies from abroad. All the customers are from these countries, so it's really easy to stick these companies to a certain country.
Yeah, and then the major issue with a lot of, let's say, original Romanian companies, if they are working in Western Europe, what we see with a lot of them, and you have to be so careful with this, is they rent a parking place in Belgium or in Holland or in France, and they make, they don't do big repairs there, but small repairs. There's one guy going every month to do all changes on the trucks. These are things which are very dangerous, because it's really easy for Western European control instance to say, look, you have made an operational center here in Belgium. All your you are doing the changing of the drivers here. You are doing the tanking here, etc., etc. It is a difficult topic, so that's why if you're doing this kind of business, you should be very careful and take some good advice from a very good lawyer like myself. Take some very good advice on how you're going to do this, because only to have an office in Romania with two people in there who are doing the paperwork, it's not enough. Then you are going to run into problems. And there are certain Romanian companies who are running into problems. It's true.
And not only in Belgium.
Not only in Belgium. I have 4 big cases coming up in France in January and March on the same topic. 2 of them involve Romanian companies. So it's not only in Belgium. We think that also in, God bless you.
Thank you.
We think that also in you're going to see cases in Holland, because we get signals that also Dutch authorities are going to start up controls. So we will have to see. But I think one major issue is going to be the implementation of the mobility package. And there are still certain points which are very unclear. The way you are going to have to, for example, the way you're going to have to do your paperwork for the detachment, so the European loi Macron, if you want. We will have to see how that is going to work, how you are going to do the exact calculation and the comparisons between wages. That's a very big discussion, because are you going to, should you compare? For example, in Belgium labor law, we have nightly allowances for a driver who works at night. Should these be taken into account, yes or no? And if you look at all the countries, I know, for example, in Poland, you have like 10 or 20 of these different kind of allowances. Yeah, should you count them? Should you not count them? Which will be a major impact on the market.
But do we discuss about minimum wage, or do we discuss about remuneration? Which is
we are talking about minimum wage, but the question is, the major problem is that this detachment, it's not a regulation, but it's a guideline, which means that every country has to translate it, for example, Belgium and France, into its national law. So every country will have to decide what is minimum wage. If you look at the wording, what is included in minimum wage? Now, I know that, for example, between Belgium and Germany, there's a huge difference. In Germany, the minimum wage is only the hourly wage. Point. You don't have extras for weekend work, night work, etc. In Belgium, for instance, all these extras, they are part of national law. And according to Belgian law, this is included in minimum wage. That's also the reason, if you look at the guideline on detachment of drivers, that the national authorities will have to publish in the next year what, according in each country, is included in minimum wage and what is not. So I think we're going to have huge discussions about this. It would have been a whole lot simpler, to be honest, to just make one European standard for the wages of drivers for everybody. So we wouldn't have all these kind of discussions, because this is going to give a whole lot of paperwork for the transport companies who will, and for their advisors, because how are you going to do your HR? If you drive in 10 countries, you will not only you have to take into account the Romanian HR, but also the Belgian, French, German, Dutch, etc., etc. It's going to be messy and not in a nice way.
Do you think is there any possibility to appear something new on the mobility package before 2022?
Honestly, no. No, because if you look how long it took the mobility package to be discussed and voted, if they want to change something, you will have to have the same time once again, which means at least 3-4 years. So if they want to change something, it's going to take 3 or 4 years, and the big transport companies are not going to wait. Honestly, so all my big clients are already preparing the final introduction of every part of the mobility package. And honestly, for most of them, the question is not if they are going to change, but only when exactly. Most of them aim at changing their way of operations for the summer of 2021 or autumn 2021. That's what I hear from the most. And that's nothing new. I already told you that what we are seeing, that there's a lot of trucks which are going to go to Germany and going to go on German immatriculation. They will leave Romania, Lithuania, Bulgaria, which will be the 3 biggest victims of this, I think. Nobody's going to wait, because it's too dangerous to wait. If you're not ready yet by next summer, you're going to be too late. Already now, for example, if you look, there's a lot of interest in, because if you want to open up, for example, in Germany, you have to find with the new mobility pack new offices in Germany, parking places for your drivers to sleep during the 45-hour breaks. There's not a lot of parking place to be had in certain areas in Germany. If you look at the border region between Belgium, Germany and Holland, a lot of people are already looking right now at taking over German companies. I have a lot of clients who ask, every week I get 10 questions from clients. Hey, Frederik, don't you know any small German company we can take over? Because they already have their organization, they have a parking spots, so it would be a lot easier, but they're not there. It's not possible. So you have to, if you want to prepare, you have to prepare now. And the big ones are preparing and they are ready to go. Most of them have already opened up different possibilities. They have looked at different scenarios. The very big one will split up. I have companies who are splitting up their fleets between a part will stay in Romania, a part which will go to Italy, a part which will go to Germany, a part which comes back to Belgium, a part which will go to Luxembourg. That's what we are seeing with the very big fleets, and I'm talking about more than 1,000 trucks. I have smaller companies. Most of the small companies are returning, or I have even quite a lot of Romanian companies, not Belgian owned, but Romanian companies who are asking questions about opening up in Belgium or in Luxembourg. it's happening now, and you have to prepare, you have to be ready to make the switch, because if you're going to start preparing in February 2022, you're going to be too late.
Very difficult times to be a transport company.
It's very challenging. That's true. It's very, very challenging. And there's the major issue, and that's one thing I'm very unhappy about, is with the COVID-19 crisis. The market, of course, is being implicated. So we are seeing not a real market, but a strange market, because normally with the mobility package, what would go on is that the prices would have to go up. I know that a lot of clients were already discussing with their clients major hirings of the prices, because they are saying, okay, we have to prepare for this mobility package. The wages of the drivers are going up, our costs are going to go up, etc. So we want you to pay more. But of course, with COVID-19, there's a lot less transport, so prices stay down, which is the bad thing. What everybody, especially some of my clients, were expecting was a major improvement of transport prices, and then it would be easier for everybody, because then if everybody gets a little bit more, then it's easier to compete for everybody, and you don't get these big differences between certain countries where also we have to be honest, there are a lot of cowboys also in transport, people who don't take the law too seriously and who undercut the prices. I'm still hearing kilometer prices of 0.6 euro per kilometer. It's not possible to drive with a truck at this price. It's not possible, but they are doing it and making the market very, very difficult for everybody.